3 years ago, my partner and I bought our first house. It was a simple, cozy place on a quiet street. The neighbors were exactly what we hoped for, friendly, always ready with a wave or a smile. Life felt almost too good to be true. So, when those same neighbors put their bigger, more modern house up for sale right next door, we jumped at the chance. The new place had a garage, a real driveway, and a bathtub. We moved in and listed our old house. Eventually, we sold it to a Polish couple who seemed polite, if a little reserved. They spoke English with us, not Dutch, but nothing about them seemed off at first. Looking back, I realized there were subtle signs that something wasn't right. It started with odd noises at night. Random banging, music so loud it rattled the walls, but never at predictable times. It was unsettling, but we assumed it was just new neighbors settling in. Then, one day, I noticed our neighbor's car. Both sides were scraped up, like he'd driven through a narrow alley at high speed. When I asked, he shrugged and blamed it on a concrete post and a careless truck. The explanation didn't make sense, but I let it go. One evening, he called us. His voice was trembling. He said someone was tampering with his security cameras and begged us to look outside. Sure enough, I saw 2 men near his house acting suspiciously. We called the police, but by the time they arrived, the men were gone. The neighbor's wife rushed home, frantic. The police took a report, but nothing was stolen. Reviewing our doorbell footage, we saw the men calmly chatting in Polish before the break-in attempt. I told the police it felt staged, but I never heard back. A week later, I was at a friend's party when my partner texted. The music next door was blaring again. Minutes later, he called, panicked. Our neighbor's car had crashed through our garden and into his own front door. The same 2 men from before were loading electronics, TVs, speakers, expensive gear, into the car. This time the police arrived quickly and confronted them. When asked for ID, one of the men claimed to be our neighbor, using his real name, but spoke Dutch fluently. Our neighbor never did. Realizing they were caught, the men tried to escape in the car, but police boxed them in and arrested them. Meanwhile, my partner heard movement inside the neighbor's house. The officers went back in and found a 3rd man hiding. While we were inside with a police officer, documenting the damage to our property, the doorbell rang. Standing there was our actual neighbor, barely recognizable. His face bruised and swollen, one eye shut, his arm limp and bloodied. He refused to speak to the police or file a report, brushing them off and stumbling back to his house. Later that night, he returned to our door, shaking, and confessed that he'd cheated on his wife. He claimed she'd sent people after him and begged to stay with us. We were terrified and refused, but my partner offered to drive him to the hospital. We dropped him off and told him we'd be staying elsewhere, though we just went home and locked every door. Around 1 a.m., our dog started growling, a deep, low rumble he only made when someone was at the door. Checking the camera, we saw our neighbor back from the hospital standing on our porch, ringing the bell over and over. We watched in silence as a car turned onto the street. The neighbor darted off the porch and hid behind our cars. The car stopped and his wife got out. She spotted him crouched in the shadows, and as she approached, she began to sob, a raw, guttural sound that echoed through the empty street. He said nothing. Eventually, they both got in her car and drove off. For 3 days, they were gone. When his wife finally returned, alone, she told us she wasn't sure you'd ever see him again. Their dog had been left inside, alone. I still don't know what really happened, whether it was drugs, debt, or something darker. All I know is that I never want to find out. In 2017, my family moved into a split-level house on the edge of Montreal. My bedroom was wedged between the main floor and the basement. One wall bordered the garage, and the other faced the backyard through a wide window. That window had old vertical blinds, but several panels were missing. Even when they were closed, I could see outside through the gaps. My closet doors were mirrored, reflecting the window back at me no matter which way I turned in bed. For the first year, everything seemed normal. I was 15 and spent most nights watching videos on my tablet, struggling to fall asleep. One summer night, I heard shuffling outside my window. I paused my video, thinking maybe the sound was from what I was watching, but the noise stopped too. I shrugged it off and went to sleep. A few nights later, it happened again. Soft footsteps, maybe breathing. I glanced at the window but saw nothing. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination. Then, one night, I saw something move. Not directly, but in the reflection of the window in my closet mirror, a quick shadow passing through one of the gaps in the blinds. My heart pounded. I woke my parents, but my dad checked the backyard and, finding nothing, told me I was probably just spooked by scary videos. The Ring camera showed no one. I wanted to believe him, so I did. But the sounds kept coming, every few weeks, always late at night. I tried to ignore them, blaming the wind or my nerves. When winter came, the noises stopped, and for a while I forgot about it. But as soon as spring arrived, the footsteps returned. Sometimes I'd hear deep, steady breathing, but I never dared look directly at the window. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I glanced at the mirror and saw the outline of a person, standing perfectly still. I ran upstairs, but again my dad found nothing. This cycle went on for years. I started going to bed earlier, using headphones to drown out the sounds. I stopped looking at the window or the mirror altogether. Every winter, the disturbances paused, only to return when the snow melted. Then, in December 2021, a windstorm hit. Around 11:30 p.m., I went to get a glass of water and found my parents sitting in the living room, tense and silent. Suddenly, red and blue lights flashed outside. A police car pulled into our driveway. My parents rushed me back to my room, promising to explain later. Minutes later, they called me upstairs. My dad finally told me what happened. Earlier that night, he'd gone into the backyard to check for storm damage. The light from my window caught something. A man standing just outside, staring in. My dad shouted, and the man bolted, vaulting the fence like it was nothing. My parents called the police and tried to warn our neighbor, but she yelled at them to leave. The police arrived but couldn't do much without a clear description. They suggested more cameras, which we installed. But what unsettled me most was our neighbor's reaction. Why was she so defensive? Was she hiding something, or did she just mistake us for someone else? I'll never know. What I do know is that for years, someone watched me from the darkness, and I tried to convince myself it wasn't real. I've since moved to a different room, one that faces the street. I still wonder how long it would have gone on if my dad hadn't seen him that night, and what might have happened if I'd ever looked directly out that window. When I was 15, my family moved out of our cramped apartment in Alberta and into a bigger house a few blocks away. The place was old and a little run down, but it was affordable. My dad was eager to fix it up, especially the basement, which needed new carpet, beams, and wallpaper. I even got to pick out the pattern for my room down there. For a while, Everything felt fresh and exciting. That changed on my dad's birthday. We'd gone out for dinner and came home to find the front door wide open. My mom was panicked, begging my dad to drive us away. He insisted on going inside first, grabbing a heavy wrench for protection. The police arrived quickly, searched the house, and found nothing missing, just a few things out of place, some books knocked over in my room. We tried to move on, but a sense of unease lingered. After that, I started hearing odd noises, scratching, tapping, sometimes muffled thumps from the walls or under the basement floor. I told myself it was just old pipes settling. Then, one night, as I played my Nintendo DS under the covers at 2 a.m., I heard laughter, clear as day, coming from the wall beside my bed. I froze, heart pounding, and waited, but nothing else happened. In the morning, everything was normal. I tried to convince myself I'd imagined it. Weeks passed. My baby sister was born, and since the basement was spacious, she shared my room. My mom set up baby monitors all over the house, just in case. One evening, my parents went out, leaving me in charge. While watching TV, I heard footsteps, heavy, deliberate, coming through the baby monitor. My sister started crying, and then there was a faint shushing sound, followed by a crash. I panicked. I grabbed my dad's rifle from his room, even though I couldn't unlock it, and crept downstairs, determined to protect my sister. The crib was empty, but she was still crying, and the monitor lay on the floor. I yelled, threatening whoever might be there, but got no response. I scooped up my sister and ran upstairs, barricading the basement door and calling my parents. The police arrived before my parents did. They searched the house and found nothing. As they were leaving, my dad asked if they'd checked behind the bookshelf at my room. The officer looked confused, but followed my dad downstairs. The bookshelf, which was built into the wall, had been pushed open like a hidden door. Behind it was a cramped space with pipes, food wrappers, a missing cup, a knife, and a half-eaten apple. The basement window was wide open, a chair propped beneath it. Someone had been living in our house, right behind my wall. The police said the intruder probably escaped while they were outside. They doubted he'd return now that his hiding spot was discovered. But a few days later, curiosity got the better of me. I opened the hidden door and found a small hole in the wall, perfectly aligned with my bed and dresser. That meant whoever was in there could see everything. Me sleeping, changing, living my life, all without me knowing. I've since moved out, but my parents still live there. I worry about them, and sometimes I wonder if that hidden space is still empty,